What's going on, everybody? DiGi Valentine here right about now. I was awakened early hours this morning by my girlfriend telling me that there's some interesting news floating around the internet today, so I hopped onto Twitter like I normally do and then checked my feed, and I can see some people from the SEGA community talking about a potential third NiGHTS game. This is nothing new. We've had this discussion plenty of times before. Sometimes there's been a hoax, sometimes there's been like a potential fake leaked list, and NiGHTS has been in there. You know, even fans just hypothetically speaking about a third NiGHTS game and what they would like it to be if ever a third NiGHTS game existed. So this discussion, as I said, is nothing new. I've seen it a million times before. However, the reason I've decided to make a video about it this time, on this particular point in time, is because there's some strange context to where this is originating from and why people are suddenly talking about a third NiGHTS game. And even if it turns out to be nothing but hot air, I still feel it was a good discussion to have. So basically, a list has come to light in the last couple of months that is allegedly leaking data mined codes for titles of upcoming games in the next 2 years for the Nintendo Switch. This news, this leaked list, was posted on an image hosting site, and it also wound up on Reddit as well. So the fact that I'm saying the word Reddit and leaked list in the same sentence means we are taking this with the finest grains of salt that you can possibly pour out from the salt shaker. This is really, honestly, the low end of rumors. But let's just take it for what it is. Let's just humor the topic. This leaked list of apparently data mined names of games that are coming out in the next 2 years for the Nintendo Switch. If you scroll all the way, I mean, this list is long as hell, but if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, there's a small little nugget, a small little collection of SEGA games, and one of them is Team Sonic Racing, which we know about, you know, nothing new there. Underneath that, which is really odd, it says Team Sonic Racing Transformed. Now, I don't know about you, okay, but I know about Sumo Digital, and there's absolutely no way in hell they've got 2 games in the Team Sonic Racing franchise planned right now. They're gonna get the first one out the door first, and then they'll play the waiting game, see how it does, and maybe, just maybe go and make a sequel to it. There is absolutely no way in hell Sumo Digital have a Team Sonic Racing Transformed ready now before the first Team Sonic Racing has even released. So that's what's making me look at this list and go, nah, they're chatting shit. But anyway, underneath that little small section of Team Sonic Racing titles, there's a game here listed as NiGHTS Dreams Against Nightmares. Firstly, I'm going to give you my knee-jerk reaction to this, okay? If this was real, and that's a NiGHTS game, and that's the title they've gone for, that title is terrible, and I'll tell you why, because it does absolutely nothing in tune with the NiGHTS franchise, okay? Let me talk to you about NiGHTS' titles. The first game, ambiguous as hell, okay? The title, NiGHTS Into Dreams. Like, what the hell does that even mean? NiGHTS Into Dreams, you know? It's over the top, it's super weird. And it gives you a sort of sense of mysticism about it. NiGHTS Into Dreams. It's an interesting title. Even the sequel game, a bit more on the nose, but still quite flamboyant in a way. NiGHTS Journey of Dreams. The journey through dreams. So you've got these fancy sounding titles for the NiGHTS games, okay? And then you've got this one sitting right here going, NiGHTS Dreams Against Nightmares. To me, it feels like someone's come along with the most basic term and basic subtitle you could give to a game like NiGHTS. Dreams Against Nightmares is just the most basic. It's like Sonic versus robots. Sonic versus Fat Round Man. It's just, what the fuck? So, I don't know. To me, if you're asking me, that title sounds bait as hell. But let's entertain it. Let's entertain it, as I said. Let's humor this subject. Terrible sounding titles aside, this could just be a working title. I mean, it's no secret that games do have working titles. When they're in production, they don't go by their final names. In actual fact, Journey of Dreams, back in the day when I first found out about it through our source, the game for the Nintendo Wii was being called Bedtime Story. It was called Project Bedtime Story. That was what Knight's Journey of Dreams was originally known as. And by the time the game came out, they changed it and it was called Journey of Dreams. And I was like, okay, fair enough. That is to be expected. So I'm looking at this title and it's saying Knight's Dreams Against Nightmares. And I'm like, weak-ass title. Maybe it's a working title. Maybe it's a project title. Maybe it's going to change as they go along. That is, if to say this game is actually a legit third Knights game. But on a knee-jerk reaction, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking to myself, based on the title alone, and based on the fact that it's underneath a game called Team Sonic Racing Transformed, before the first Team Sonic Racing is even released yet, kind of makes me go, not too sure, bruv. That's like a warning sign right there. That's a red signal. I'm not too sure. But, okay, fine. Terrible title aside. I'm gonna say that if that ends up, let's say, again, humouring the subject, Knights 3 does exist. This is Knights 3. This is what we're getting. Let's say Knight's Dreams Against Nightmares is an actual title. I mean, doesn't mean the game's gonna be bad, does it? I mean, for me personally, when they announced Sonic Mania, if you're asking me, I'm looking at Sonic Mania as a whole product. The entire game, everything about it is fantastic. The one thing I really don't like about Sonic Mania is the title, because it does nothing for the game. I don't think it sells the game well. What, Sonic Mania? It sounds like a craze, a fad, something that happened in the news during the mid to late 1990s. Sonic Mania. It doesn't sound like a Sonic title. But that being said, the game turned out to be fantastic and probably one of my favourite Sonic games in the last 10 years. So, if we're going by titles, Dreams Against Nightmares, as lame and straightforward as it sounds for a Knights game, if it turns out that the game is real and turns out to be fantastic, shit, yeah, call it whatever you want. Call it Knights dives into a toilet, Knights goes through the U-bend, whatever, I don't care. If it plays great, you can slap any title you want on there. I really don't care too much. But knee-jerk reaction, that doesn't sound like a Knights title. It really doesn't. But okay, let's go with this. Let's go with this some more then. Okay, this alleged third Knights game is in a list for Nintendo Switch games that are going to be releasing over the next course of the 2 to 3 years, right? And what is interesting about this list is some of the games that are listed there have actually come to light. Certain games in the Pokemon series have been listed on here. They are now officially out in the open. They've been announced. There is some credibility to this list, but that being said, I'm not even sure if this is true or not, but I think this list can be edited. So people have gone back in to add stuff. And if they're able to do that, if they're able to edit the list, then that means they're able to go in there and just throw in whatever the hell they want in there. They could throw in fake titles for whatever reason, just for shits and giggles. Why not? Let's have a laugh. So that's why I'm not really taking this list as gospel truth here. But again, we're going to talk about it. Okay, so it's a list of games for the Switch. So the first thing I want to talk about in regards to that is, if this was a third Knights game and it's real and it's actually happening, what does that mean for Knights as an IP then? Does that now mean that Knights is technically somewhat of a Nintendo exclusive? That seems to be the general thing that people are kind of hoping will happen. I have to be honest, I disagree. I'll tell you why I disagree. I don't feel Knights should be console exclusive. It can go on the Switch, 100%. They can release it on the Switch. You'll have a great user base waiting for it on the Nintendo Switch. But I don't think a game like Knights should be a Nintendo exclusive game. I'll tell you why. I want everyone to think back to 2006 to 2008 when Journey of Dreams was being released for the Nintendo Wii. Around that time, the Nintendo Wii was the most successful console. And it had the whole Wiimote gimmick and everyone was buying it based on that, oh, it's fantastic and all this stuff, what have you. So they tried to implement a hook feature into the Knights game by saying you can control the character, you can make the character fly by waving your Wiimote around, and it was a gimmick, it was a marketing hook. And it didn't work because the game didn't play as well with the Wiimote, and if you know what happened back then, you know how the press kind of approached this game in reviews. It did, however, find its own cult fanbase, just like the original Knights into Dreams before it. Knight's Journey of Dreams for the Nintendo Wii found its own cult fanbase. There are a small pocket of fans out there that really, really love this game, and I don't blame you. I like it. I'm not crazy about it. It's got its flaws as far as I'm concerned, but I can understand why the younger side of the fan base gravitated towards Journey of Dreams and latched onto it the way they did, in the same way that back in 1996 and 1997, I latched onto the original Nights into Dreams myself. But the thing about Journey of Dreams on a Nintendo Wii was, because of that hook and that marketing gimmick and because of that whole thing trying to make it exclusive, I think Sega were, overshooting the mark with that. I think they didn't really gauge what would happen. They had to understand that the Nights fan base is a cult fan base, but at the same time, you need to sort of cater to that cult fan base. And the way Journey of Dreams played in gameplay mechanics was kind of different to the original Nights into Dreams. I mean, it feels the same. You're flying around, you're collecting points and stuff, but the energies are very, very different. There's a very different concept in Journey of Dreams and how you fly and why you're flying when compared to the original Nights into Dreams. And some of the older fans felt a bit put off by this new understanding of the concept, shall we say. Where is Nights Journey of Dreams right now? It's stuck on the Nintendo Wii. Reason? Chances are it probably won't be getting ported anytime soon because the game didn't sell to Sega's expectations, which is sad, but that's the truth. They put it out, it didn't sell, and unless somebody somewhere moves some money around between the companies and says, okay, we'll port Nights Journey of Dreams to Steam and Nintendo Switch and whatever, Nights Journey of Dreams is now just stuck on that console forever. Like, we are not going to see this game outside of a Nintendo Wii unless somebody somewhere feels there's an investment to make with Journey of Dreams by porting it. Unless that happens, it's not going to move from the Nintendo Wii. So this is where I'm bringing up a third Nights game now, and why I don't feel it should be a Nintendo Switch exclusive. Let's say history repeats itself. Let's say they put a third Nights game on the Nintendo Switch. Let's say that it doesn't do as well. Let's say that it does the same kind of numbers that Journey of Dreams did, and Sega are now kind of wanting to wash their hands of it, and they don't care for it and they just want to leave it. That's another Nights game now stuck on a console that likely won't get ported to future consoles, won't get sent over, remastered, remake, nothing. It's just going to sit on an old machine 10 years from now, and no one's going to be able to play it unless they boot up that old console. I don't really want that for Nights as an IP. I think the Nights IP has had a rough time with it already, and I really don't feel that in the best interest of Nights now and Nights for the future, that a Nintendo Switch exclusive is the best way to go about it for a third Nights game. The best thing Sega can do, and the best thing I think they could look at, is making Nights multi-platform. Have a game, have a version of it on Switch, but don't lock it down to one console. Let it broaden out to the other consoles and the PC market, And I think Sega would be shooting themselves in the foot if they were to just release a Nights game on one console and not cater to those other markets, not release it on the other consoles and their marketplace, their digital download stores and stuff, not release it on home computers and the things like Steam and so on. So for the sake of Nights, and for the sake of Sega themselves to obviously get a return revenue from the game, to put it on Switch by itself seems like, yet again, they will be shooting themselves in the foot. And I feel like a game like Nights that caters to a cult audience they need to please that cult audience. And that cult audience is not just exclusively on Switch, they are all over the place now, because gaming has gone everywhere. So you kind of need to take your new games everywhere if you want to reach those people. Because the thing about Nights, what makes Nights so difficult to sell, is you have to tick a lot of factors. You have to tick a lot of boxes and get a lot of factors right for the game. At the core base of the game, to sell to the core audience, you have to get those fundamentals of Nights correct to please that core audience. And then from that core audience, good reviews, good press, good praisals from the community, it will span out and then gain more interest from outsiders. But yeah, that's the main reason I don't think a third Nights game would be stuck on the Nintendo Switch. I don't think it would be in Sega's best interests. And that's just going by this list because it was specifically an alleged Nintendo Switch release list. It doesn't mean everything on that list is exclusive, it just means apparently these games are coming out on Switch at some point. But let's just say, again, we're just hypothetically talking now. Nights 3 is a real thing. What sort of game should a third Nights game be? Because as I've mentioned before, Nights into Dreams and Nights Journey of Dreams play very, very differently. So what kind of game should Nights be? Because Journey of Dreams, for all its shortcomings, tried to be a big elaborate story, probably too big, in the sense that it felt like it was getting padded out at some points. There was minigames upon minigames and so on and so forth, and it felt like it was dragging longer than it needs to be, whereas the original Nights into Dreams, you could complete that game in like an hour, but because the fundamentals, the gameplay structure, the mechanics was so on point that it was the replay factor that got you. The replay factor was always high for Nights into Dreams if it managed to grab you. And I think for a third Nights game, in the best interests of SEGA again, because I know they don't want to invest so much money in something that might end up becoming a commercial flop, what could you do? Well, I think SEGA at the moment are clearly looking at past IPs. I mean, a game like Streets of Rage, for example, Streets of Rage 4, they're reviving the Streets of Rage franchise by allowing a third party to handle it. Same with Sonic Mania. It was a throwback to old Sonic games, and it was handled by a third party. But again, Sonic Mania was overseen by Sonic Team. They were keeping an eye on it. I think in the best interests of a new Nights game, maybe outsource it to a third party. Somebody, a team of people who have the time to sit down and really focus on the gameplay. Really focus on what makes Nights feel like Nights, okay? Have Sonic Team overlook the whole thing, make sure the project is running to the best of its standards, but maybe not have such a strong grip on it, like how they would have done in the past. Because obviously Sonic Team have got other games they're working on themselves. They can't be spread thin across multiple projects. So I feel maybe a third party coming in to develop it would be in the best interests of the gameplay. Get some core fans who understand it, some core developers who know what makes Nights feel like Nights, get them to make it, and they can make it good. I also don't feel like it should be an overblown epic adventure like what Journey of Dreams was trying to be, because then you run the risk of making the game feel like it's being padded out again. You need to sort of focus on those core mechanics of what makes Nights feel like Nights, and in turn, I feel a third Nights game would benefit more from being a smaller title. Like, you don't have to release this like it's going to be some sort of AAA killer title, because it will never be that. Nights always kind of sits better with the smaller crowd, the smaller indie market. And I feel that if you were to make a Nights 3, you would benefit from making the game smaller, have it focused on the gameplay and the levels. Obviously include a story in there, because, you know, that's why people played Nights as well. The story was very heartwarming, it was charming. It teaches you about overcoming your fears and chasing your dreams and so on and so forth. And I feel that they can include that in a smaller game. They can include that small narrative to get the message across, to keep that same heartwarming charm that the Nights games are meant to have. I don't even think we need to have voice acting. I feel that they could even save money on production. They don't need to make these grand storylines with tons of audio. Sonic Mania didn't really utter any words. Sonic Mania was told mostly through motion cutscenes of characters moving around and facial expressions and so on. Sonic Mania Adventures, a cartoon animated series that is hosted on YouTube, is a cartoon that is non-spoken. There's no dialogue. It's just motions and facial expressions. A smaller, focused Nights game that focuses on gameplay, solid, replayable gameplay, and a nice little narrative to accompany that gameplay would be more beneficial. They wouldn't need to sell this game at like the $30, $40 price margin. $50 price margin is going to be way above what a Nights game should be being sold at. I feel maybe a smaller, focused effort, but focused well and executed well, and maybe released at the $20, $25 price range would be more beneficial of a Nights game. But that's just my opinion on it. That's what I think they should do with a third Nights game. Looking at Nights Dreams Against Nightmares, based on that title alone, I'm not even quite sure what I'm supposed to make of that. Like, one part of me feels like it's going to be some sort of weird Sonic Forces-esque create your own nightmare character, or create your own dream character, and pick a good side or the bad side, and then fight the opposing side, and that sounds too convoluted. Dreams Against Nightmares it doesn't really conjure up good whimsical energies that I'd picture from saying Nights into Dreams, but Dreams Against Nightmares just feels off. Like, I look at that, Dreams Against Nightmares, and it's just making me think of some crazy crossover fighting game. That's all I'm getting. That's the kind of image I'm getting from that title, and that's the completely incorrect image I'm supposed to be getting from a potential third Nights game. But anyway, I thought, you know what, it's probably a better time than any to finally discuss my thoughts on a third Nights game, where I feel they should take it, what I think the future is. I mean, I know SEGA are looking at their old IPs. You can tell there's interests in there now, but to what extent they develop on those plans and where they take them is yet to be seen. This could be something. Knights, Dreams Against Nightmares could become something real, or it might just be another rumour to pile upon the rest of them that we've had over the last 10 to 15 years. But those are my thoughts on it. As I said, I thought it was better time than any to suddenly start talking about this, and I wanted to express my thoughts on the whole matter. What do you think? Do you think this news is anything to get excited about? And if you believe there to be a Nights into Dreams 3 on the way, what kind of game are you expecting that game to be? What kind of game are you hoping a third Nights game would be? Let me know in the comments below, and if there's any developments to this, I'll let you know, but honestly, I'm not expecting anything. It will be nice, but I'm not expecting anything, but we'll see. Anyways, I've been DiGi Valentine, thanks for your time, take care, and I'll see you all again real soon.